Hello, students. My name is Cicelia Como, and I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas, a board certified Christian counselor, a certified school counselor, and a registered yoga teacher. I am the owner of a private practice called Capacity Awakened here in Houston, Texas, and I'm a second year doctoral student in the counseling education and supervision program here at Sam Houston State University. And my scholarly interests are in racial and historical trauma, self care, and restorative practices. I have been in the mental health field for 17 years and have a passion for helping others. Today, for Chapter 12, I am going to be your guest lecturer. Let's get started. So, Chapter 12 is going over the behavioral and cognitive behavioral models. For the table of contents, what we're going to be covering in this presentation is over behavioral therapy and family systems, the rise of cognitive behavioral therapy with families, the key role of assessments, behavioral influenced forms of family therapy, functional family therapy, conjoint sex therapy, and constructive link. So, with the behavioral therapy and family systems, there were some leading behavioralist figures. These three pioneers in behavioral therapy was a social worker named Richard Stewart, a psychologist, Gerald Patterson, and a psychiatrist, Robert Lieberman. They addressed specific behavioral problems in families, such as poor communication between spouses, acting out behavior in children and adolescents, identified in a family assessment process, not in a comprehensive family dynamics. These therapists attempted to extinguish or otherwise manipulate certain targeted behaviors by means of reinforcements. And reinforcements are the consequences immediately following and contingent upon a given behavior. They are focusing on the behaviors themselves and not the dynamics between the families. So, whatever specific behavior that's identified by a person in the family, that is specifically what these behavioralists are targeting. Adopting a family framework. So, Patterson developed parent training that clinically adapted learning principles from the laboratory to modify the behavior of a multiple problem child, as well as the reinforcing responses of his parents. Patterson's session often occurred in the client's homes. This is based on the operant conditioning and it relies on the principles of B.F. Skinner, what we have like previously covered, right? He found that certain voluntarily responses can be strengthened by selectively rewarding or reinforcing those responses. Parents learn positive communication, positive reinforcement, and structure and discipline. The rise of cognitive behavioral therapy with families. Not long after, in the 1960s, psychiatrist Aaron Beck, the father of cognitive therapy, and psychologist Albert Ellis both put forth the idea that our thoughts have the powerful effects on our feelings and our behaviors. According to Beck and others of cognitive therapy, treatment started with identifying the negative thoughts first and then replacing them with more accurate ones, which is called cognitive restructuring. Ellis suggested it is not the quarrel per se, but the exaggerated, illogical, or otherwise flawed interpretation that causes havoc and leads to negative views of oneself or the future of the relationship. He contended that cognitive restructuring would help the client modify his or her perceptions and allow her or him to produce new self statements. It's upsetting that we don't agree, but that doesn't mean that I'm a failure as a person or that our marriage is doomed. So, with cognitive restructuring, it helps to identify the automatic thoughts. Number two, it helps to address the cognitive distortions, which is the schema. And three, employ Socratic questions. Why do I think this way? And then four, accept rational conclusion. Beck in 1976 hypothesized that earlier in life, these depressed people had, through various unfortunate personal and interpersonal experiences, acquired negative schemas, this is enduring sets of core beliefs and attitudes about people, relationships, and so on that organized subsequent thoughts and perceptions that are reactivated when a new situation arises that resembles in their thinking conditions similar to those under which the schema was learned. So anytime it goes back to, if any of you guys have ever read The Body Keeps the Score, how Dr. Bissell Vanderkolk talks about the body logs specific things that it has gone through. And so that's basically this concept of when a new situation arises, that resembles the same thing. It might not be the same, but it resembles the same thing in their thinking conditions, similar to those on which the schema was learned. Beck advocated that therapists and clients work together to teach the client new methods that he or she can use in the future for evaluating other beliefs, all leading to changing dysfunctional behaviors. Applying Beck's theory to families influence how each person thinks, feels, and behaves within the family system. Family schemas are shared beliefs about what is occurring within the family. So these are the core beliefs that the family have acquired, whether it could be, from the family of origin, culture of origin, religion of origin. Therapeutically, the task becomes helping families restructure the family's dysfunctional beliefs, and as a consequence, help alter their behavioral patterns. So once these dysfunction has been made aware, helping them to now alter the behavior that follows that dysfunction. For example, if there is a belief in the family that would be considered a negative schema, and the family would have to work through this distortion to change this belief based on the family member's experience. So if there's a family member that has a negative belief about their role in the family or how they're being treated in the family, through this family system, the family has to work together to change this distortion that is coming up for that particular family member. Now, if the behavior itself is shown that this is accurate, like it's factual, then the family system has to change to kind of understand, why is this behavior being targeted towards this particular family member. The next one is the cognitive behavioral outlook. Cognitive behaviorists understand personal functioning to be the result of continuous reciprocal interaction between behavior and its controlling social conditions, emphasizing the importance of self regulation and self direction in altering behavior. So, the unique contribution of this approach then lies not in the conceptualization of psychopathology or adherence to a particular theory or underlying set of principles or even a unique set of interventions, but its existence on rigorous data-based set of procedures and regularly monitored scientific methodology. So this is based on once a person is aware, it definitely helps them to be able to self-regulate and direct them from in altering that behavior. So an awareness has to be created. Once people are made aware of the behavior and its contribution, they have the ability to change. So that awareness has to be created, or the opportunity for awareness to be created would work best. So the key role of assessment, behavioral and cognitive behavioral family therapists strive for precision in identifying a problem, employ quantification to measure change, and conduct further research to validate their results. They design programs that emphasize a careful assessment of the presenting problem. The presenting problem is a behavioral analysis of the family's difficulty. So, what is the family coming into treatment about? And include some direct and pragmatic treatment techniques to alleviate symptoms and teach the family how to improve its skills in communication and self management. So, not only creating, teaching the family new skills to improve on how they need to communicate or how they interact with one another, but also how do you manage your own behavior? How do you control your own self in the same sense? Behavioral assessment of family functioning typically occurs at two levels. One, a problem analysis that seeks to pinpoint the specific behavior deficits underlining the problem areas that, if modified, would lead to problem resolution. And then, two, a functional analysis directed at uncovering the interrelationships between those behavioral deficits and the interpersonal environment in which they are functionally relevant. You want to A, make the right behavior easier, and then B, behavior is an action and not a label. So, not labeling, oh, you are a liar or this person is this, not labeling the person, but identifying the behavior that is in action. Making the right, and C, making the right behavior rewarding. And so that's almost like with the ABC system. Cognitive behavioral assessment. The therapist is interested not only in altering the environmental conditions that oppose or impede positive family interaction, but also in training family members to maintain the improved behavior. The individual or family is not necessarily helped to gain insight into the origin of current problems. And the emphasis is placed on the environmental, situational, and social determinants that influence behavior. So they focus mainly on like the environment part. Structured tasks such as role playing in adolescence, request for a ladder curfew are often used by cognitive behavioral therapists to check on progress towards desired changes in targeted behaviors. So the next one, behaviorally influenced forms of family therapy. So these next behavioral types of therapy really focuses on the behavioral part. Um, behavioral couples therapy. Early behavioral therapists began to apply the model to couple discord. Robert Lieberman and Richard Stewart separately offered straightforward step by step sets of interventions in which operant conditioning principles were applied to distressed marital relationships, effectively increasing partner satisfaction and relationship stability in many cases. During this phase, a partner also learns how to paraphrase the other's views, even if it is inconsistent with one's own. And so this is almost like how people use like I statements, right? The person is giving their own view, and then what's happening in return, the other person is repeating back what they heard or paraphrasing what they heard, even if they don't agree with what the other person is saying. They are actually showing that, hey, I'm listening, and here's what I heard you say. Cognitive perspective. So, the cognitive behavioral family therapy is directed at restructuring distorted beliefs, the schema, which is called like cognitive distortions, learned early in life from the family of origin. Now, although they say family of origin, it also could be cultural traditions, it could be societal, it could be religion, and relationship experiences. This reduces the problem by teaching couples more problem solving skills by stating the problem and being solution focused and learning to compromise. These schemas, excuse me, our cognitive distortions affect automatic thoughts and emotional responses to others. Partners also develop schemas specific to their current relationship. Working with the couple, cognitive therapists try to modify each person's unrealistic expectations about what they should expect from the relationship and teach them how to decrease destructive interactions. So, integrative couples therapy, by acknowledging each other's emotional vulnerabilities and personality differences, they contend that couples have taken a large step towards active acceptance of each other's feelings and actions and have moved away from blaming each other and toward reconciling their differences. Integrative couples therapy retains a traditional behavioral emphasis on the functional analysis and internal determinants determinants of behavior, but it is considered part of the third wave of behavioral therapy because of its additional emphasis on acceptance, affect, and mindfulness. And if you know anything about the history of CBT, when they talk about the third wave, mindfulness was the third wave that they actually incorporated into into CBT. Emotional acceptance refers to situations in which changes either fails to occur or else occurs, but not to the extent the partner would like. In effect, partners learn to balance change with acceptance of those behaviors not open to change. Hmm. The next one is the Gottman method. John and Julie Gottman created a scientific based method for helping couples in conflict. Gottman criticizes marital interactive processes that discriminate between happily married and unhappily married couples. So the Gottmans came up with a lot of different methods, right? A lot of different things. And so this one is called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And I want you guys to listen to this YouTube video on it. I apologize. I cannot get the video to work. So I will just link it in the module so that you guys can watch it later. But according to Gottman in 2011, and contrary to popular and even professional opinion, it is not anger that predicts divorce, but rather four forms of negativity that Gottman calls the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And so they are one, criticism, attacking a spouse's character. And this is when when people are getting into arguments, right? When a couple is getting into an argument and there's criticism, and so that is attacking a spouse's character. Defensiveness, which is denying responsibility for certain behavior. Contempt, which is insulting abusive attitudes towards a spouse. And stonewalling, a withdrawal and unwillingness to listen to one's partner. And so, with these particular four types of responses, there are antidotes that Gottman has created to help their clients understand what needs to happen in order to diffuse the situation. Um, so yes, I will definitely link the video below so that you guys will be able to see the video because it's really good. So the next one, Gottman 8 relationship dysfunction. So these are like his predictors. So the first one is when a relationships have more negativity than positivity. Um, Number two, the escalation of negative effect, so criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Three, when you turn away, attempts to relate are ignored. Number four, failure of repair attempts, unable to heal wounds from normal relationship conflict and lessens the ability to resolve differences constructively. Number five, negative sentiment override, underlining assumption that partners' acts are negative. Number six, maintaining vigilance and physiological arousal. A state of agitation perpetuates negative thoughts, hinders processing, and eliminates humor. Number seven, chronic diffuse physiological arousal, generalized response to perceived threat that injure engenders defensiveness and lessens the ability to resolve differences constructively. And eight, the failure of men to accept influence from their women, rejection of influence through disengagement or intense responses. So then, as Gottman moved from pure research to therapy based on his research in 2011, theory of the sound relationship house described relationships that navigate the challenges of life well. So the model includes seven different levels. The first three reflect friendship in the relationship, so that build love maps a mental understanding of your partner, share fondness and admiration. That's to appreciate your partner's positive qualities, and toward rather than away, responsiveness and engagement with your partner. Other levels build on the friendship foundation, positive perspective, underlining positivity about the relationship that overcomes potential negatives. Manage conflict, reparative, compromising interaction about normal differences, making life dreams come true. So that's understanding and facilitating our partner's dreams, and creating a shared meaning, finding shared value in the relationship. So those are the three different things that the Gottmans are definitely known for. So the next one is the behavioral parent training and family management skills. These are parenting skills training that empowers the family. Most behavioral parenting training advocates um, advocates have had as their goal the alteration of the undesirable behavior in the child. For example, bedwetting, temper tantrums, completion, compliance with parental requests, hyperactivity, sleep problems, and bedtime fears, rather than more global sets of personal or interpersonal problems of the child. Gerald Patterson, a pioneer in the field of parent training, argues that while out of control children are angry, fail in school, lack self esteem, and have poor relationships with their parents, these factors are secondary byproducts of an ongoing process and not the causes of the delinquency. So now is the next one is the contingency contracts and other techniques. These reduce parent and adolescent problems. So, for example, it's an award system or a behavioral contract. If any of you guys, usually school counselors work with, use these tools to help students to minimize behaviors. So, this is very popular for a lot of school counselors to incorporate in the schools. The contingency contracting based on operant conditioning principles may be a particular useful give to get technique in reducing parent and adolescent problems. The technique is simple and straightforward. A contract is negotiated wherein each participant specifies who is to do what for whom, under which circumstances, time, and places. So it's almost like you're doing like the SMART goal for in the contract, being very specific, making sure that it's measurable and attainable as well. This usually involves a written agreement that spells out the exchange of positively rewarding behaviors between the relevant parties, between mom and son, daughter and mom. The goal is to acknowledge the power of both sets of participants to reverse this persistent negative exchange through a mutual exchange of positive and cooperative giving of pleasurable behavior. A contract is an opportunity for success, accomplishment, and reward. So, small successes, it might be, hey, you get a star every single day if you do these two specific behaviors in the classroom or at home. It might be brushing your teeth and making your bed. So the next one is research in behavioral couple and family therapy. Behavioral couples therapy is arguably the most studied approach in couples therapy. A large, well designed clinical comparison of traditional behavioral couples therapy, TBCT, and integrative behavioral couples therapy, IBCT, that tracked participants for 5 years. Post therapy found that distressed couples in both models improved in satisfaction, though they operated differently. IBCT focuses immediately on long-term issues, while TBCT focuses on improving positive interactions. Clinically significant improvement was demonstrated for both models at conclusion of treatment and at 5-year follow up, with IBCT showing slightly higher effects. A review of third wave behavior therapies in general finds them to be empirically supported. Demonstrated effectiveness of behaviorally oriented techniques can be a rationale for research funding and insurance reimbursement. Functional family therapy. Functional family therapy, or FFT, fosters both cognitive and behavioral changes in individuals and their families. The model, which purports to integrate learning theory systems theory, and cognitive theory, goes beyond most behavioral models by attempting to do more than change overt behavior. FFT posits that clients need help first in understanding the function the behavior plays in regulating relationships. So there's probably a lot of psychotherapy going on here with helping the clients to understand what is going on. In functional family therapy, it has emerged as a clinically relevant, evidence-based intervention used widely to treat adolescent behavioral problems, especially underserved youth with problems with violence, delinquency, and substance abuse. Research data indicates that FFT is especially effective in engaging families in the therapeutic process and keeping them in therapy. So the rates from 78% to 89% compared to the typical high dropout rates, as well as demonstrating a greater reduction in the recidivism and harmful activities than probation services. The next one is conjoint sex therapy. Both behavioral and cognitive behavioral techniques have been applied to sex therapy, especially in treating many forms of sexual dysfunction in a relatively quick and effective manner. Treatment, whether applied to men or women, is apt to be aimed at reducing or eliminating any mechanical problems in sexual performance. Treatment involves a relationship assessment, including the commitment of each partner, their sexual histories and expectations, their ability to communicate, feelings about sex and other matters, their ability to negotiate what they want or what gives them pleasure, and their degree of comfort in problem solving together. According to Kaplan, there are several types of sexual dysfunction grouped according to stages of the sexual response cycle. Desire disordered, ranging from low sexual desire to sexual aversion. Arousal disorders, difficulty achieving sexual excitement. orgasm disorders, premature, delayed, or unpleasant orgasms, sexual pain disorders, pain involved in sexual activity, problems with sexual frequency, disparities between partners regarding desired frequency. Finally, Kaplan cited a third set of psychological determinants of sexual dysfunction, factors arising from the relationship, such as forms of marital discord, lack of trust, power struggles between partners, efforts to sabotage any pleasure being derived from the sexual experience. In combination or singly, any of these problems or conflicts can lead to distressing sexual symptoms that threaten a marriage by heightening tensions and can even lead to its dissolution. So basically, with these key psychological determinants, it's showing that if these things, such as marital discord, lack of trust, power struggles, and things like that, are on top of already the sexual dysfunction or the sexual disorders, how how distressing and threatening the marriage can be, and how the heighten of tension based upon the different layers to this. A constructive link. Donald Meichenbaum at the University of Waterloo in Canada, one of the founders of Cognitive Revolution, is extremely influential through his work on stress um, inoculation and self instructional training aimed at helping clients teach themselves to overcome previously stressful situations. His cognitive orientation in treating victims of violence and abuse led Meichenbaum to adopt some narrative constructive ideas. After hearing people describe the stories of their traumatizing experiences, constructing their personal realities, and creating their own representational models of the world. Constructivists argue that reality is invented a product of the personal meanings each individual creates. From a narrative perspective, the traumatized person constructs stories to explain his or her situations. To help clients achieve narrative repair, change their assumptions and schemas about the world and their ability to manage stress. Meichenbaum and his colleagues conduct collaborative sessions in which distressed persons learn to develop and accept a conceptual reconceptualizing, sorry about that, of the distress they previously helped co-create. Meichenbaum believes that both spouses are responsible for the dysfunction within their relationship and both must co-create a new reality. So after all of this, right, what he's saying is that when these things are acknowledged, he believes that it is both the spouse's responsibility um, to redo or co-create a new reality for them to have a much more healthier relationship. These cognitive behavioral therapists help clients talk to themselves differently, unfreezing their beliefs, creating new narratives in order ultimately to behave differently. Thank you so much for allowing me to guest lecture with you guys, and I hope you enjoy this presentation.